people that I know from my days in FSSAI. It's pleasure seeing you again after a gap of many years, and friends and colleagues from IIIT-Delhi. In this room, talking about food and cooking, seeing more, males than females is very surprising. I think food is becoming hot. In some sense, whether you look at startups in the food sector, I think there are far more number of startups in the food sector than any other sector. And food and technology is in that space a very hot area. I will basically make my remarks in three different buckets. First is the main topic itself, which was given, food and nutrition policies and role of data in that. Second is a little bit comment about work that Professor Barker's lab is doing. And third is opportunities for startups in this particular space, and I can see a lot of young people in this room. So let me begin by, let me take help of, I'm not going to read out all this to you. Okay, so don't worry. Now, when I was looking at, the policies around food and nutrition, the way food and nutrition and its role, has evolved with passage of time, I'm taking talking a little distant past. Our relationship with food obviously starts from the day human beings came into existence, maybe 200,000 years ago, when civilizations grow 6,000 years ago. But the fact that food has anything to do with health and human well-being was not really recognized, except maybe in our ancient scriptures and all that. The history of modern nutrition is fairly recent. It is only 100 years old. When the first vitamins were discovered, they were isolated, and this entire exercise kept on happening over decades, beginning from 1926 onwards. And then there was a huge debate on, and in the next 20-30 years, almost all the vitamins that we know today were discovered, they were isolated, synthesized. And then, diseases, ailments associated with the vitamins came to be known. Countries around the world started looking at food as a fuel and started doing calorie counts, and nutrition surveys began. I was in Japan recently, one of the first countries that started national nutrition surveys. A few days ago, India also, started a very comprehensive diet survey and biomarkers survey, which will be done by National Institute of Nutrition. So, so as far as nutrition is concerned, it's a fairly new science, so to say. And with my little exposure to food and nutrition space, while working at FSSAI, I can say that there are many gray areas in food and nutrition. Food, nutrition, food safety and all. I think we know so little about it. There is a lot of areas that we do not really know. And thus far, the developments around nutrition, even public health interventions driven by governments or even international organizations, funded by foundations like Gates Foundation, they basically consider the whole issue of food and nutrition from a very reductionist point of view. Say that, all right, if there is a problem of anemia, it is attributed to lack of any iron in your diet, and therefore do supplementation, provide tablets. or provide fortification as a remedy to this. And when after years of intervention we find it's not working out, then as Professor Manji, Chef Manji pointed out, you say that all right, you are providing iron, but it's not getting absorbed because something else is missing, and it could be vitamin C. Or when you are taking iron enriched food, your body is not absorbing it because you are not taking it at the right time. So all these complexities will begin to be, and it will take several years and good longitudinal studies to figure out why a particular intervention does not work. So I think when the entire view that we are taking is more on a reductionist, way of looking at food and nutrition, there are challenges. Because it is so complex and there are a lot of things that we don't know that are still not on the table. Therefore, we are bound to go wrong. And therefore, a lot of people are going to the ancient wisdom of Ayurveda, where you take food holistically. You are talking of diets. You are not talking of a particular supplement. You are not talking of a particular ingredient of food that you are taking, but you are taking wholesome food. You are taking everything in moderation, and you are timing it. So it's becoming, I think, as we move forward, this is the way that we have to address food and nutrition issues. Unfortunately, currently, both in public policy, even global policies, forget about national policies, we continue to take a very reductionist view of food and nutrition. So is true about the courses that are run by our universities and colleges around the country, because it is based on modern nutrition. And a modern nutrition which is based on maybe, I would say, a very little body of knowledge that is available to public at large, to all of us. So I was very surprised to see recently when I was in Japan for a week, addressing International Congress on Nutrition, about the work that has been done in Japan. And as we all know that Japan is an aging society, but a very healthy society. Way back in 2005, they started, and they have a long tradition of having those nutrition surveys and where data-driven approaches to addressing public health issues is there. So they started talking about diets and lifestyles together, along with physical exercise. And through an act of parliament, parliament in Japan is called diet. I was very confused when I read diet. Like, diet ka ye kya likha hua hai in logon ne? It's diet. So they started the parliament, the diet, created a framework for addressing diet and lifestyle issues through an act of parliament in 2005, which is called Shoku Act, which is about dietary and lifestyle promotion. It has very simple things. Chew your food. One of the 21 items on that list is chew your food. Eat in a family environment. Don't eat alone. But there are also things like salt reduction. There are also issues like have less sweetened beverages. So all those things are also there. But it's a more holistic approach to this. And I was surprised कि ये Japanese लोग करते कैसे होंगे? ये पार्लियामेंट ने एक्ट पास कर दिया कि घर में हर कोई चबा रहा है खाना, ये कैसे संभव होगा? So, but they have a way of doing it. So they have given this responsibility to the municipal authorities. Municipal authorities then interact with the community on a weekly basis through workshops, seminars, dissemination, etc., etc. But the point I'm trying to make is that rather than taking a reductionist approach to nutrition, a more holistic approach to nutrition is the way forward when we look at issues of food and nutrition policies moving forward. During my time at FSSAI, we started what is called as Eat Right movement, and my address in the International Congress of Nutrition was primarily focused on India's experience of addressing food safety issues in informal markets. And there we started by looking at informal markets in bits by bits. So, when I go to the next part of my, talk about the work, let me ask you first that has anyone eaten an elephant? Anyone? Obviously, no one has. But if you eat an elephant, how do you eat an elephant? You eat an elephant bit by bit. Okay, so when you have a complex problem, how do you address that complex problem? You break that complex problem into small elements, and that is where the work of Professor Bagler, that complex system laboratory comes in. Look at a complex system as subsystems connected together with each other, and how they influence each other. First, have a greater clarity about each of those subsystems, and then connect them with each other, and see how it all fits in together. Over the past 7 years, the wonderful work that he has done is trying to address this complexity. One was the modern way, the world has been going around with modern nutrition, looking through a lens of looking at micronutrients, macronutrients. Then there were debates about fat versus sugar. There were debates about protein versus carbohydrates. So that was one way of looking at it. Now, his way of looking at it is that everything is important. Everything is good. But then we have to see them as a part of a system or subsystem and see how those subsystems are connected to each other. In this entire debate on nutrition, Chef Gill, Mrs. Goela, they will be very unhappy because there is no concept of flavor, taste. वो है ही नहीं, वो न्यूट्रिशन के कॉन्सेप्ट में कहीं है ही नहीं, न्यूट्रिशन के स्टूडेंट्स को नहीं पढ़ाया जाता है. While when people make food choices, those are very important elements, and that is what you are bringing in, those complex subsystems, these subsystems around flavor, about taste, about fragrance. You are connecting them maybe to the nutrients, micronutrients, phytonutrients, or all that stuff, around absorption, about issues of toxins, contaminants. So it's a very complex overall system. And now we bring in, if this complexity is not good enough, we bring in the whole concept of gut microbiome. That, and number of biobiomes that each one of has is several times, I don't know, you would know it, several times the number of human cells that one has. So it is a very complex system, and therefore this work that you are doing as a part of complex systems laboratory is mind-blowing. If there is one word I can mention about the work that Professor Bagler's team is doing is wow. Both the breadth of the work and also the depth. I can't even believe it. The number of recipes, number of ingredients, number of stuff that you have done, the depth to which you have gone, it is unimaginable. And I think in many ways it is a path-breaking work which has huge implications on the way the world eats, the world looks at food. Because you are basically starting with basics. You are not starting with vitamins and minerals. You are starting with food है क्या? Food के क्या different elements and how do we bring it all together? And you have over a period of time brought them all together, driven with data. And of course, the next big challenge is that how do we cull out from all this information, all these systems, subsystem understanding, useful ideas that people can use, startups can use, to make businesses out of it. Because unless you make businesses out of it, those ideas are not likely to flourish. Government के भरोसे कि government इसको promote करेगी कोई कारण नहीं, because government will always be driven by what is happening at the UN organizations. And 2 years ago, I was part of UN Food System Summit as co-chair of food safety. And can you believe it? For 1 year, I must have attended 50 such meetings, small conferences here and there. And as co-chair of food safety at a global level, there were all UN agencies, all development partners like Gates Foundation, etc., etc. And they were not basically seeing eye to eye on the entire issue of that food safety has anything to do with nutrition. So they still have a very siloed way of looking at things. If you ask an expert on food and nutrition, he will say, "Mera expertise to micronutrients. I can't talk about calories." So I think, here you are looking at the system as a whole. And that is what the new thinking around food and nutrition is going to be. The entire UN Food System Summit was based on the simple principle that food, nutrition, public health and sustainability they are linked with each other. Something that we started thinking several years ago. In fact, the book that was written, The Food Systems Approach, predates the UN Food System Summit. That brings the ideas around food safety, nutrition, sustainability in one compilation. But no university in the country is today teaching these courses together. They still look at them at isolation. Here, Dr. Baglet, you will see that there is also a chapter on taste, flavors, which is unique. You taste wale hai na, sab unself hai. Because that is an important element of when we talk about food. So I think you are pretty much on the right track. The work that this laboratory is doing has such huge implications for society moving forward. Today we take classification of species for granted. Way back in 1758, when it was first created, out of complexity of so many plants and animals around us, Linnaeus created. It made things so simple for everyone. I'm sure the impact that your work will have in food is going to be similar. You are classifying food that we take for granted in a very structured, organized manner, so that you can unravel the complexities of food in all its dimensions, and then people can make better sense of it. I think that is the vision that I can see in the work that you have, and that is where the opportunities for startups lie. How you can use the huge data that this project is gathering from all around the world and create products and services that create a better society, a healthier society, a more sustainable food system for the world. That is where we are all headed at. So hats off to you and your team for doing this. You are pretty much on the right direction. I think the public discourse, both nationally and globally, around food and nutrition, I would say it's still 2 decades behind the work that we are doing. But I think we all together can work to see that the work gets disseminated widely across the world. More people join in this entire effort, so that the benefits of new understanding that handful of you have created, its benefits reach the society at large quicker than it would usually take. A few days ago, I was reading a book, Think and Become Rich. Napoleon Hill. So, not that want to become rich, but I think to become rich or successful in any endeavor, there are three things essential. One is organized thinking. I think, as I can see over the last 7 years, it has all flowed in a very organized thinking way. And as he mentioned that some of the ideas, my ideas he had stolen. Because whether it is about food grammar, I was trying to work on a curriculum for school children. And this is my foundation's main objective, that how can we teach our children, not nutrition education. We are not talking about nutrition education, we are talking about food education. We are talking about food literacy. How they can relate with the food they eat on an everyday basis, not in terms of micronutrients, calories, vitamins, but in terms of real food they are having. Because all these concepts of micronutrients, vitamins, minerals, they are concepts that children will not get a hang of, but they will get a hang of banana kha rahe hain, ye kha rahe hain. So I think we want to connect them with the real food, and through real food, develop a positive relationship of children with food. That is the objective of the food literacy curriculum. And then when we started working on it, one of the big challenges was that the new way in literacy is कि आप पहले ABCD नहीं पढ़ाते. मैं कहा इसकी ABCD क्या होगी? So we looked at how do we create ABCD for food, and found कि ये से apple.
Okay, time's up.
So he said it can be reversed.
First question is that can you go back to your chat GPT and your model? So there was you were getting the responses.
So then we created that grammar for food, and this grammar, the syntax, I think that is original thinking. Because I was beginning to think on the same lines that each food ingredient we treat it as an alphabet. A combination of alphabets is a word that becomes a recipe for food, and then you can create a meal as a sentence, and then you can create a culinary tradition by adding so many recipes, etc., etc. So that is precisely what you have written. So it is all about, and that came out with two people thinking about the same thing in very different contexts. So you are pretty much on the right track, and this is going to make a huge impact. So organized thinking is so much important for scaling up anything, and therefore that is the first ingredient to become rich and successful. Second is persistence. इस 7 साल से करे जा रहे हैं. So I think this persistence is really paying off, and moving forward I am sure it will go big. And third is, there is a concept of mastermind. So the concept of mastermind is how, when you are looking at a complex system, so how do you bring a body of people to think around that complex system, so that they begin to think coherently as one mastermind. I think, Professor Bhadir, you have created that mastermind around computational gastronomy, and these young people are your part of that mastermind that is, going to make a difference. So you can count on a lot of people around the country in your entire effort in making this entire initiative of IIIT-Delhi as one of the path-breaking initiatives to build a healthier society, to build a better world with a healthier planet. Thank you very much.